I don't care that you hate Trump. Why should you care that I like him?
You just watched a clip from a Fox News segment where they talk about how politics has destroyed friendships across the country, and they focus on a poll which shows that 2/3 of Democrats are actually more likely to end friendships over politics compared to 27% of Republicans. And they go on to share some clips from leftists to give their audience a sense of the perception that we have of them. And here's one of the clips that they decided to share.
There's a solid 32% of the public that's out there that are mental, bro. They are deranged. They are demented. They have lost their minds. And they actively want pain and hurt and devastation.
Hey, that guy looks familiar. So Kyle was cooking in that video, obviously. He always cooks in all of his videos. But I will say they did do him dirty because they labeled him a liberal, and he is not a liberal. He is a leftist. There is, believe it or not, a difference between a leftist and a liberal. But putting that aside, Kyle's clip encapsulates our true feelings about American conservatives. I agree with every single thing that he said. And Greg Gutfeld, to his credit, seemingly does try to respond in earnest to our concerns, because he goes on to suggest that he's also lost friendships himself due to his fascist politics. So I think he tries to actually steelman our position in order to prove to us that conservatives aren't the demons that we think they are. And it's really just one big misunderstanding. We only think they're demons because we misunderstand them. And to me, this kind of felt like weirdly personal from Greg Gutfeld, because usually he doesn't speak this way. He usually takes things not so seriously, but it really felt like he was making a pitch to his neighbor or former friend to get them back. I don't know. But I'm assuming the fascists who saw this segment actually thought he was making a compelling case, because more of them started to open up about how they've also lost friends because of their fascist politics. And we're going to look at the right-wing pity party that ensued after this segment aired. But I'm here to burst their bubble and let Greg Gutfeld and other conservatives know that he did not make a compelling argument. And I'm going to break it down bit by bit and explain why that is the case. So first and foremost, he argues that our perception of conservatives is wrong.
They apply moral value to political preference. And that would make sense if your political party praised Hitler or protected murderers and sex fiends. But the mistake is, it's not the Republicans.
I beg your pardon? You just described Republicans to a T, Greg. And this feigned ignorance is part of the problem. You refuse to acknowledge basic reality. How can we be friends with people who live in a different plane of existence than we do? Trump's regime is refusing to release the full, unredacted Epstein files in defiance of federal law, mind you. Marjorie Taylor Greene claims that Trump actually told her the Epstein files can't be released because it would hurt his friends. But that's only partially true, because Trump himself is cited in the Epstein files tens of thousands of times. He has been accused of raping girls as young as 13 years old. So attempting to stonewall the release of information about the largest sex trafficking ring in human history means that they are indeed protecting sex fiends, because they literally are doing that in front of our eyes. As for protecting murderers, I think that is a really charitable way to frame it, because they're not just doing that thing that you said they're not doing. They're committing murder themselves. The Trump regime is shielding the ICE Nazis who murdered Alex Preddy and Renee Good from any accountability whatsoever. On top of that, the Trump regime dropped a bomb on a school in Iran that killed more than 100 little girls. It's like 160, 170. And we've barely even scratched the surface. He's guilty of war crimes, as well as multiple genocides and ecocide. Like, the list goes on and on and on, but you get the point. And when this is all said and done, he will be remembered for near Hitlerian levels of death and destruction. And through all of this, through everything that he's done, you still support him, thus confirming that you are, in fact, amoral. But I actually think that that's too charitable as well, because most of you are proudly immoral and downright fucking sadistic. And you know you are. You know that I'm not being uncharitable. You know that you're sadistic. And with regard to Hitler, Donald Trump has an undeniably Hitlerian flavor to his politics, which isn't surprising, seeing as how he reportedly read Mein Kampf himself. He quoted Hitler multiple times. Like, do you think that he came up with vermin or immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation on his own? Those aren't things that politicians usually say. His own vice president once speculated about whether or not he'd become America's Hitler. There's a reason why out and proud Nazis identify with the Republican Party. They're not running as Democrats, they're running as Republicans. There's a reason why leaked group chats from conservatives expose them as Hitler-loving Nazis. It's because the Republican Party is an explicitly fascist movement at this point, and Greg Gutfeld's inability to acknowledge this fact is why nobody wants to be friends with him, because you refuse to acknowledge reality. And I love how he says that we apply moral value to political preference as if that's a bad thing. Yes, I do apply moral value to political preference. Politics is fundamentally about the distribution of resources, and if you think that the lion's share of capital should go to people at the tippy top of the social and economic hierarchy as opposed to everyone else, then I think that you're a selfish, immoral piece of shit. Sorry. To me, politics is about helping as many people as possible. To you, politics is about the maximization of greed and wealth. And you exploit bigotry to make sure that the working class is always fighting each other, so they never turn their ire towards those at the top. I mean, your politics necessitates that you turn a blind eye to human suffering because you've prioritized profits over people. And to me, that makes you an amoral, if not immoral, piece of shit. But he continues.
But they've always compared Republicans to some kind of existential threat. They've done it with climate change. They've done it with compassion. They do it with Trump. That allows them to label us as amoral. But we know, and Harold would agree, Republicans are not evil. We have a different path to the pursuit of happiness and serenity in people's lives, safety and security.
No, you don't. You don't really stand for anything, but the things that you do stand for absolutely do pose an existential threat to people's lives, objectively speaking. Not subjectively, objectively speaking. We have one habitable planet. That's it. And Trump has done everything in his power to undo what little progress we've made towards cutting off fossil fuels. Why? Because his donors want to make more money. They want to increase short-term profits. So they're doing that at the expense of the long-term habitability of our planet. And I'm not sure if you know this, Greg, but making the planet uninhabitable isn't a partisan issue, or it shouldn't be. But Republicans also need a habitable planet just as much as we do, right? But they've turned this into a partisan issue because the totality of their politics revolves around making rich people richer. And they're going to make them richer at all costs, even if it's at the cost of our entire planet. So yes, that definitionally makes you an existential threat because your party is accelerating the destruction of the one habitable planet capable of sustaining human life. But it goes deeper than that. Because Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Not that we had a fully functioning democracy in the first place, but he is the only president in our nation's history that has refused to accept the results of an election, and he incited an insurrection to overthrow the government. That has done irreparable harm to our country in so many ways. So Trump has literally uprooted our way of life, not just as Americans, but as human beings. Things are never going to be the same again because of all of the damage that he's caused. But according to Greg Gutfeld, it's all just one big misunderstanding. They're not evil per se. You know, they just have a different path towards the pursuit of happiness. Except you don't, though. You don't. You literally don't. Maybe that's true for like rich people, but broadly speaking, it's just not true. Every single policy the Republican Party supports is intended to bring about as much pain and suffering as possible. I mean, think about the shit that they've done now that they have power. They cut Medicaid. They cut food stamps. They let the cost of healthcare go up. They've started new wars. You support these wars, by the way, Greg. And Trump just admitted that we're not going to do anything about helping people. We can't do daycare. We can't do shit because we've got to spend more money on death and destruction abroad. And on top of that, conservatives fight civil rights at every step of the way, and they always have. So they want minorities to live in a perpetual state of oppression because their utopia, I guess, is everyone being miserable and them relishing in other people's pain and suffering. I don't know. Like, you very clearly want them to be second-class citizens because otherwise you would support equality, but you don't want that because equality feels like oppression to you. So you would rather just make people suffer, I guess, so you can feel better about yourself. I don't even know, but I mean, I can go on all day. There isn't a single fucking thing that your party supports that objectively improves the lives of working people. You are a plague on our body politic. You're not even conservative in the traditional sense. You're actually regressive because conservatives, they try to maintain the status quo, whereas your party, they just want to take us backwards. Republicans are reviving Jim Crow across the South as we speak after your Supreme Court just killed the Voting Rights Act. I mean, the Voting Rights Act. So no, I don't believe that you just have a different path towards the pursuit of happiness because you're getting everything that you've ever wanted. We are living in what you said would be the ideal society, and it's nothing but corruption, pain, suffering, and nonstop misery. So if this is the good, then I don't want to know what you view as bad, but there's more.
I don't care that you hate Trump. Why should you care that I like him? The answer would be because he's evil. He's like a Nazi. Well, this is where the whole thing falls apart. What does that mean to me if I'm your Republican friend who voted for Trump? That you would believe I would support a Nazi? We've been friends for years. I've been through this. If you're my friend, you have to realize that's illogical because how were we friends for 10 or 20 years and now you found out I was a fascist? How did that happen? Right. You knew I was a right-winger in the 80s, in the 90s, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't be seen with him. So the key moment of your in the self-realization of a liberal should be, if your dad loves Trump and you love your dad, shouldn't you maybe question whether your dad doesn't love a Hitler figure and therefore maybe Trump is not a Hitler figure? And that flaw in your thinking should put into question the reliability on your filter on your life, that this thing is not working. It's not translating. If I love my dad and my dad voted for Trump, but I think Trump is Hitler, there's something wrong with my logic. Your dad is not a Nazi lover. This is why they break off relationships, because when they run into those people that they like and they love, it calls into question that filter.
I think that he thinks he was killing it right there, like it was a mic drop moment. And I'm sure that for people who eat glue and play with their feces, it did go really hard. But I can assure you, it's actually a really dumb point because he's essentially telling people that they should embrace cognitive dissonance. My dad is a good person, therefore, my dad can't be a Nazi. Except, supporting a Nazi is what makes people reevaluate their default moral assessment of their father in the first place, because if he was a good person, he wouldn't support a Nazi. Trump literally ran on mass deportation, and the way that Trump talked about immigrants was akin to how Nazis talked about Jews in the lead up to the Holocaust. Trump dehumanized immigrants to the point where he literally accused them of eating people's pets on national television, which was a lie spread by neo-Nazis, mind you. Trump bragged about having the largest deportation force in the history of our country. And I'm no fan of Ronald Reagan, but he begrudgingly gave amnesty to millions and millions of immigrants. So we went from amnesty to largest deportation force in American history. Like, don't get me wrong, Republicans have always been evil, but they've gotten exponentially worse in the Trump era. So I think that that's why Greg Gutfeld's friends turned on him, because they're learning about the totality of his conservatism. They can no longer reduce conservatism down to gun-loving deficit hawks because it's devolved into something so much more nefarious. It's an overtly fascistic, extremist political movement, and if you still support the Republican Party to this day in 2026, you're inadvertently telling your loved ones that there's no line for you. There's nothing you wouldn't support. Pedophilia, war crimes, it's all okay. It doesn't matter that we literally have an American refugee crisis where trans Americans are forced to flee red states just to be free. It doesn't matter that concentration camps are being set up across the country. It doesn't matter that Jim Crow is making a comeback. You're still going to be ride or die no matter what. And if you're still on board with all of this, you'd be on board with anything else. If Trump built death camps, you wouldn't stop supporting him. I mean, tell me I'm wrong, because again and again, you've proven that there's no moral line for you. There's no limits to the cruelty that you're willing to support. Hence, you're a morally bankrupt person. And the terrible things that you've supported is forcing people to reevaluate their perception of you, because it's not possible for you to be a good person or be the good person that they thought you were if you support such terrible fucking things. If our own friends and family can support all of this, it's easy to see how so many Germans supported Hitler in the 1930s. We're forced to reckon with the fact that our Trump-supporting family members would have supported Hitler too, had they been alive during World War II. They probably also would have supported slavery and segregation, because if you can support all of this, things that we all know we're going to look back on and be deeply ashamed of, what won't you support? There's just no limits to your depravity. And it's hurtful to learn that people that we once trusted and respected could be so inhumane. It feels like a betrayal. It compels us to view them for who they are and not what we thought they were. If your entire political project is to make people's lives objectively worse, I'm sorry, that says something about you as a person. It's not a mere disagreement, okay? We can disagree about certain things. That's fine. We can disagree about marginal tax rates or whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. But if you don't view trans people or immigrants or black and brown people as equal human beings, and you vote for a party whose sole purpose is taking away their freedom and civil rights and civil liberties, you are my fucking enemy. Full stop. Your beliefs are just fundamentally at odds with everything I stand for as a person. You're going out of your way to turn this country into a cruel place that most of us don't want it to be. And that's what conservatives don't get. They honestly believe that it's not that serious because they don't think that they have anything to lose by supporting the party they support. They don't care that they're hurting other people because they don't see the pain that they cause, or they're oblivious to it, or they do see it and they like it. But I mean, like, let me just show you an example of this conservative ignorance that makes people so fucking pissed off. A man on Twitter named Mike Bales made a tweet that went viral by saying, "I'm a MAGA Republican. That doesn't make me your enemy. It means I see things differently. We can disagree on politics and still respect each other. That used to be normal." Actually, no, I don't respect you, and you are my enemy. Your party is literally destroying this fucking country, ruining our lives. Do you expect to have a barbecue with your black neighbors after the party that you gave power to just killed the Voting Rights Act? Their great-grandparents and grandparents were beaten to get that enacted. They put their lives on the line and it's gone. And you expect to just like break bread with them as if nothing happened? Do you expect your daughter to want to celebrate Father's Day with you after you voted for the party that took away her bodily autonomy? Do you expect your trans sister to want anything to do with you at all after you voted for the party that forced her to leave her home and family and job behind just so she can move to a state where she's still able to get the health care that she needs to survive? Do you think anyone wants to spend Thanksgiving with you when you can't be normal for just 5 fucking seconds? Even if you try to set up boundaries to maintain relationships with MAGA family members, I've tried this. You can't do it. They never respect those boundaries because they can't help themselves. They're fundamentally flawed people. It's not just that their politics is miserable. They're miserable too. And quite frankly, you have to be a shitty person in the first place to adopt their political orientation. So chances are most Trump supporters were already insufferable bad people before Trump was a thing, and them coming out as Nazis kind of just gave you all the more reason to cut ties with them once and for all. But more conservatives began to speak out about this very issue because they all feel so sad that nobody wants to be around them. Matt Van Swole, a popular MAGA chud on Twitter, shared his story, writing, "I've gone to the same gym for almost 4 years now. Good friends with nearly everyone there. One day, a guy who used to make small talk with me just stopped. Didn't think much of it, but it went on for weeks. Found out later he's a liberal, and someone showed him my Twitter account, and he just won't talk to me now. This has happened many, many, many times since becoming publicly conservative. I've lost many friends and even many more acquaintances. They won't even discuss us. Won't even look at me. It's bad for me, but it's 10,000 times worse for my wife. Liberal women are genuinely evil to conservative women. I wonder why. It's on another level. Pure evil. No one talks about this enough, but the public shaming of people who are openly conservative is extremely intense, and unless you have a lot of mental fortitude and surround yourself with better people quickly, I can understand why many people find it not worth saying anything at all, but that doesn't make it harder for those of us who speak up because we are the few." Now, others replied, sharing their stories with Matt. "Happened to me too. Had a friend for almost a decade tell me they can't be friends with someone who supports a pedo. Pot, black." What? Stings because it's not true and because they allowed the POV to color their relationship. Sucky, but made me realize how fake our world is. My teenage daughter lost all friends in high school because she made one comment once about not thinking Trump was so bad. Spent her final year of school lonely and heartbroken. That's the tolerant left for you. Right, except we don't have to tolerate intolerance. And I'm sure that your daughter's friends were shocked to learn that a young woman such as herself would be fine with an openly misogynistic, racist rapist. Like, that would be creepy. I would think less of somebody if they told me they didn't think a person who was a corrupt war criminal pedophile wasn't so bad. That's weird. That says something about them. And the irony is that they genuinely view themselves as victims who feel like social ostracization is too cruel of a punishment for the politics that they have, even though the totality of their politics centers on ostracizing and marginalizing everyone else. They're getting a fraction of the hate that they want for immigrants and LGBTQ people and people of color, and they can't take it. It's intolerable for them to be treated so poorly, yet they can't fathom why we'd want nothing to do with them when they subject marginalized people to treatment that's orders of magnitude worse. Because again, they're incapable of putting themselves in anyone else's shoes, because they're as selfish as they are hateful. And they don't realize that it's always been this way. There's always been consequences for fascist Confederate politics. There's a reason why Klan members wore hoods, because they knew that they still had to show their faces in their communities, to their friends, to their families. And they knew it wasn't really possible to live normal lives when they've dedicated themselves to demonizing others. MAGA doesn't understand that that's how we see them. We view their red hats as modern-day Klan hoods, as an extension of the white supremacist politics that's plagued this country since its fucking founding. But they misread the room. Trump gave them the courage to come out as racist fascists, and they thought that everybody would be fine with it. We could still be friends afterwards. But unfortunately for them, they're learning the hard way that there still is a social cost to being a hateful piece of shit. In theory, they could still be friends with each other. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. But on a subconscious level, even they know how insufferable they are, which is why they're so broken up about not being friends with us. Because they don't want to hang out with other miserable MAGA dipshit losers. Like, they suck. They want to hang out with people who are actually normal, with a sense of humor and intelligence. And them getting cut off from polite society feels like victimization to them. And their loneliness, I mean, it's the bed that they made for themselves. But as lonely as their existence may be, they actually deserve so much worse. They deserve so much worse. They should be pointed at and laughed at everywhere they go for the rest of their sad, pathetic lives. And when they die, people should spit and piss on their graves, because the amount of pain and suffering they've caused is immeasurable. And I truly don't think the country will ever recover from it. So I can only hope that a little bit of what they've caused to others comes back around to them. But if it wasn't obvious enough already, I don't really have any sympathy for them. You know, they talk about their loneliness and I feel nothing. I will never, ever forgive these people for the misery that they've caused, either because they're hateful or ignorant or both. They've brought us to the brink of a cold civil war, but yet they still want to get together at the end of the day for a beer and maybe a round of Mario Kart like the good old days. Well, to that I say, fuck you, fascist scum. Die lonely, you miserable pieces of shit. I would say more, but I feel like I'm going to be a little bit too mean to the point where I violate YouTube's terms of service. So I'm not going to say what I really want to say, but just know that we think this way about you for a reason. And if you really want to understand why there's so much animosity towards you, look in the motherfucking mirror.
Alpha male, not a beta male.